Good evening and welcome to GG's Burger Bar here in downtown Coffeyville. It's the Red Raven Coaches Show, and I'm happy to be with everybody after the winter holiday. And big thanks to, of course, GG's for having us. Big thanks to the David W. Barnes Funeral Home for sponsoring the show. And we're going to get it started this week with Jay Herkelman and the men's basketball team leading us off. But before we dive into the game against Barton last night, Coach, how you doing and how was your holiday?
It was good. We had a nice break. All the players most of the players were able to go home for a while and spend some time with their families, and I was able to do some of the same, heading up to Iowa for a little bit like we do usually around the Christmas time, but was around my immediate family with my daughters, so that was very nice.
And you said something you mentioned before the show. Rare year 2023 was where there was no snow when you went up to Iowa.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's unusual. Going up there, it was actually kind of nice, 40-some degrees, 51 day, and no snow. So.
Well, Coach, of course, we hinted at it a little bit earlier in the week when we talked when we previewed the Barton game. But one of the big changes for your group that we saw for the first time last night against Barton, we had one player out, one player in here for the second half of the season.
Right. Yeah, we had Isaac Jackson as an academic casualty, which is very unusual, but it happened this year. I'm very unfortunate for us and for him. So he's no longer playing and won't be the second semester. And then we got Boubacar Keita back. He was out with the foot injury, about the last month of the first semester, and it was nice to get him back. He's still got to work some rust off, but it was nice getting back out on the floor.
Well, let's get started with talking about BK because you make a good point with the rust. Of course, something about BK we've talked about in the past is, of course, the talent, especially on the defensive end, is very apparent. Very apparent, I should say, when he's on the floor. Great length, great size, great shot blocking ability, like you've touched on a few times. But still, kind of sometimes learning some of those instincts and some of those, making that quick decision on the defensive end. And we've seen a couple times this year him end up in some foul trouble, and that was the case against Barton where he fouled out in 14 minutes of action.
Yeah, he just he had a tough first night. Started for us last night, but just never really got into a rhythm. Got in foul trouble, and as you said, only played 14 minutes. But yeah, that's the things that I know on the roster. It says sophomore by his name, but he's basically as much a freshman as our freshmen are that we have. He didn't play much last year. He was out in the fall scrimmages with injuries, and then when he got back playing, then he was injured again, and he just needs playing time. He needs time on the floor. He needs a lot of reps. Practice is one thing, but game reps, live action is totally different. And just like what you said, just so he can play a little more instinctually out there instead of having to think about things, being more reactive to things.
And, Coach, something you mentioned here in the second half, we're going to see a whole lot more of Alvin Cole. We're going to see a whole lot more of Charles Caparasso. They combined for 18 rebounds, and both of them coming off the bench. And, of course, Alvin ended up playing 28 minutes with BK and some foul trouble. So I know you like both of them from a talent perspective, or they wouldn't be on this roster. But what did you see from both of them last night?
I was really pleased with Alvin. Got 11 rebounds, and that was one of the things that really talked to him about. He was around here over the break. He wasn't able to go back to Australia, so we had a lot of time in the gym while, over the break. And I just said, one of the things we're going to miss about Isaac not being there is just his rebounding, and we got to have these guys pick that end up. And he did a great job with that last night. As you said, he had 11 rebounds. I think as he gets more comfortable and gets in better shape and gets used to playing more minutes, he's going to start scoring the ball a little bit for us and just get more comfortable on the defensive end. But I was real pleased with how he played against a very experienced Barton County team. I was happy with that. Charles came off the bench, got 7 rebounds, scored a little. But just is starting to understand the importance. I hammer it all the time with those guys. Just being a good defender and a good rebounder, and then other things will happen for you on the offensive end just because you'll be on the floor if you're doing those things. And he's starting to realize that, and he gave us some good minutes last night also, and he was a little bit under the weather. Not feeling well yesterday, and still gave us some pretty good minutes.
Well, Coach, something before we kind of continue to deep dive into this game against Barton. I listened to a good portion of the game last night. I'm not gonna lie and say that I watched a good portion of it, but I did listen to the call on the radio. And from what I see, looking at the box score and from what I heard, just kind of the pace of the game. And I'm curious your thoughts on it. I think with a group that had a pretty significant shake up to its roster over the break, and a group that's still, I think it went into the break, we talked about, with some momentum, winning 3 consecutive games going into the break. Very, very tough to get the second half of the season started on the road against Barton, who, in my opinion, is one of the top 2 or 3 teams in this league, which reflects in their conference standing. But to go into that gym, out-rebound them, have more assists than them, force 13 turnovers. We'll dive into some of the nitty-gritty, but I think you went on the road against a top 10 team in the nation and really held your own. And what was your overall take from the performance?
We did. Yeah, I was still disappointed we didn't win. Mm-hmm. We just went in there really working on our execution on the offensive end, and and we hadn't played a game in a month, and just what it is in junior college, and neither had Barton County. And we weren't executing on the offensive end as cleanly as what you want, and I know that'll come in time. But we turned the ball over too much. First half we had 14 turnovers, and still we're only down 1 point at halftime. We're down 29-28, and we were watching film with the guys today, and at one point, it's 26-24, and almost every offensive possession I was stopping the film and I was talking about, okay, this is what we need to be thinking about here. This is what we need to be doing. This is where you should be. And just, it seemed like every possession I was nitpicking on things, and I said, and still look where we're at. And if we wouldn't have turned the ball over as many times we did and gave them easy buckets, we could have very easily, been at 10-point lead at halftime. But those are the things that we got to correct, and that's what we're talking to the guys about, just having that discipline, having the toughness to be able to do it against somebody good. All of our losses, as we talked about before, they're all to ranked teams, but that's who we play in this conference. They're teams that are good, and we got to start beating those teams. We got to start executing better. We got to start being a little tougher and doing the things that I think we're capable of doing so we can have success.
And Coach, something we've touched on a couple times this season already is, your team's defense has performed at a high level for much of this season. And I think, you look at 76 points given up, and maybe that doesn't tell the full story, but I think what does tell a big story is we talked about how talented the backcourt is for Barton County with Mose Downing Rivers and Ring Malith, 2 of the guys that we mentioned, Cooper Jackson as well. Cooper Jackson fouled out in 17 minutes of game time. Mose Downing Rivers ended the game with 8 points and as many turnovers as he had assists. And Ring Malith shot 2 of 7 from the floor. So another game where, like you said, obviously unfortunate to come away with the loss in a game like that. But your defense continues to show that they can slow down opposing teams as top players.
Yeah. And that was the other thing we talked about today, was just that if we didn't give them the transition buckets off our turnovers and some quick, poor shots that we had, and we're able to just play in the half court, we did a great job guarding them. I thought we did a real good job on Mose. Ring is one that can get streaky from the three-point line and get in the lane, and he's 6'9" and athletic and can use his length, and we did a nice job on him. I thought we did a good job overall just with the way we play in the half court defensively, but we have got to get ourselves in position to be able to do that more consistently, where if we're not turning the ball over and we're taking good shots, and even if we take good shots and we miss it, where they're not getting run-out stuff on us. So, but yeah, that's one thing that with this team, why I keep believing that as we keep going along with this season, we get a chance to be really good, because they guard. And we've got a good plan on the defensive end. And and we do guard. We just got to be more efficient on the offensive end and start making some shots and start doing things a little more disciplined on that end of the floor.
Your team in the first dozen games of the season or so, not one of the top teams in the league in terms of assist numbers. And I think both of your freshman point guards really had a nice night sharing the basketball last night, with Brian Griffith ending up with 6 assists. We'll talk more about Brian here in a second, but 6 assists for Griffith, 5 assists for Kofor, 14 assists as a team. Is the assist number at the end of the game something you've been tracking in the last couple weeks, looking to see growth in that department?
Well, that tells you obviously you got good ball movement, but I've really challenged those two guys to be leaders. There are 2 point guards, there are 2 ball handlers. A lot of times they're in there together like they were last night, and they just have to take on that responsibility. And as I told them, since we've been back from Christmas, I don't consider you a freshman anymore. We're past that. I know I throw a lot on your plate, and I'm hard on you, but that's the hat you wear when you're a point guard here. And they're both willing to take on those responsibilities. And last night, they both did some good things and both made mistakes, but they both own that. That's a really good thing about those guys is they own up when they make a mistake. They don't blame somebody else or make an excuse. They own it, and those two guys will continue to improve as we get going on, and I can just see in practice. And last night's also the way Brian played, but I can see their confidence because they're just more comfortable in what we're doing. We just got to clean some stuff up.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right with Brian's confidence, because that's what I wanted to touch on. Obviously, 4 turnovers. I'm sure you'd like to have a couple less of those, but 14.
Yeah, two of those weren't his. I mean, he got them, but it was Alvin's fault. He made good dump offs to Alvin, and Al just didn't catch the ball, and Brian got knocked with those turnovers, but it was more on Alvin. He should have been ready and catch the ball, and he really would have had 2 dunks if he would have just caught the ball, because they were great passes from Brian.
Well, two turnovers even better then.
Yeah.
14 points and 3 rebounds, 6 assists in 27 minutes. And I know we had talked in the first half of the season about Brian. You have so much confidence in Brian as a scorer and as a player, and you felt like it was only a matter of time before he kind of showed what he was capable of from an offensive perspective. And one of my favorite moments of the first half, Coach, is after a game I ended up going out to eat with Andrew and a couple other people of the camera crew, and we ran into Brian and Des Marshall in the restaurant actually on our way out, and the first thing Des Marshall says to me is, Brian Griffith's going to get going.
Yeah.
And last night really felt like a huge step in the right direction for him.
Yeah, and I got mad at him a few times for not shooting the ball, and he didn't have a great night shooting it from 3, but I see it every day in practice. I see him just like today. He worked extra after our workout today, and I want him to play with that kind of confidence out there, because I think in time, once it clicks, he's going to get going. And I got upset with him a few times last night about not shooting the ball, and he laughed at me one time. He's like, all right. I'm like, well, if you don't do it, your other option is I'm going to take you out. And so he gets the point with that.
Coach, last thing here before we take our first break of the show, of course, your team continues to shoot free throws at a pretty high level this year, shooting 87% from the line, but huge discrepancy in free throws, 15 attempts for your group and 34 for Barton. So obviously your team plays a very aggressive style of defense with the length and size on the floor, but how do you make sure you prevent those opportunities at the line as we move forward?
Yeah, it was interesting disparity. They played zone a lot second half. They played zone half the time in the first half. They played zone 3/4 of the time second half. So they weren't as aggressive. Part of that is also just not being quite in game shape yet. Your reaction time, your feet moving, and all that stuff isn't what it was, when you were in game mode first semester and having that month off. So some of that is just that there, just getting back into shape, getting your reactions back at game speed. I'm not too worried about that, although, last night it was interesting that it was 20 difference, but that's what it is sometimes on the road.
Red Ravens come up 76-69, just a bit short on the road against Barton. We're having a chat with Coach Jay Herkelman here on the Red Raven Coaches Show. Let's take our first break of the show. We'll step away for 2 minutes. When we come back, more with Coach Herkelman as the Ravens get ready for Garden City. You're listening to the Red Raven Coaches Show on the Mighty 690 KGGF. We're back in 2 minutes. Raven Coaches Show here on the Mighty 690. I'm Shea Neal, and we're chatting with Coach Jay Herkelman of the Red Ravens as they're coming off of their 76-69 loss to the Barton Cougars. And this Barton team, like we mentioned a little bit before the game, Coach, 4 returning starters from last year's team. And you've been a coach long enough that I think obviously the talent you accumulate through recruiting, I think you think should obviously stack up with anyone. But when you face a team that has so many key pieces back from a region championship bid a year ago, and you play them very tough on the road. I know you said a few things could have gone your way, and you end up winning that game. But when you see that with a group of 10, 11 first-year guys, does that give you a sense of, this team is growing, this team is maturing, and this team is going to be ready for some very competitive basketball in the second half of the year?
Yeah, I think so. Still, my mindset is, and I know it's tough. It's a long day yesterday. We leave Coffville at 9:30 and don't play till 7:30, and then we get back at 2:45 in the morning. It's a long day, but when we're in game time, my mind is we're prepared and we need to go out there and win the game. And I know we got a young team. And last night, that's what I told my wife afterwards is, the beginning of the second half, it was definitely the difference of an experienced team and a less experienced team. The way they kind of punched us in the mouth in the first 5 minutes of the second half. We were fine. Going into the game, we told the guys it's real important that we hang in there in the first 4 minutes. By the first media timeout, because just getting back in sync thing with games. But we're playing an experienced team. These guys are going to be very aggressive defensively. We can't dig a big hole there, and we did that, and felt real good about things at halftime if we just cleaned things up, especially with our turnovers. Then we came out the second half, and we just didn't match their energy. But we got down at one point 19 points, and I said. At a timeout, I said, fellas, we got to change things now. Otherwise, this thing's on its way to 30. And give our guys credit. We've done it. They fought, and we got ourselves back in position where it's a 5-point game at one point. And we gave ourselves a chance down the stretch. And so, yeah, I mean, even though, we've got a lot of freshmen that are learning and learning, we've got good talent. We're guarding well. We rebound the ball well. We just got to clean stuff up on the offensive end, as I said before. We got to make some shots. And when we start doing that and really getting rhythm on the offensive end, I think we can be really good.
Well, and it feels like, this team does, like you said, the foundational things of winning basketball well, even with the inexperience, where you said they rebound the ball well, they guard the perimeter well. They block shots. They're just getting better at get their assist numbers. It really feels like they shoot free throws well. It feels like a lot of these foundational pillars of winning basketball are done well by this team, and it really does come down to, like you said, limiting turnovers, maybe learning game situations, a close game with 3-4 minutes to go, and what you do in certain situations, certain scenarios, and just consistency shooting the basketball, which with a group, like you said, with the talent of this team, that's going to come. But it has to give you comfort that some of the things that maybe you necessarily can't coach, some of those foundational pieces of basketball, this team does at a high level.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've got good size, got athletes. I think, we're not as deep as what I once thought we were going to be, but we still got, I think, 7 solid players, and that's good enough, especially with the media timeouts. And some of those guys played multiple positions, so we can move them around. And yeah, I mean, I just I like the guys. I mean, every day in practice, they're attentive. They work hard. We just got to start being better on the floor against. And this league is hard to do that. I mean, just like who we're playing Saturday, Garden City. Garden City is really good. But they're learning. In order to be successful again in this league, you got to have a level of toughness and some discipline that we haven't reached on a consistent basis yet.
Well, it feels like this is really the time of the year in the conference where the top 6, 7 kind of start to separate themselves from maybe the bottom 5 or 6 in this league. And I think, this next stretch of 2 weeks is really a lot of finding out who's for real and who isn't. You've got, of course, you open with Barton, very tough team right now, 13-1 on the season. You have Garden, who has great guard play, including one of the leading scorers in the league. Right. And then you go to Dodge City, which was the region champions a year ago. I know they're not quite the same team this year, but that's still a very solid team, well coached. And then you have Hutchinson come to town. So, I mean, this next 2 weeks is definitely, at this point of the season, you got to prove that you belong in that top 6, 7.
That's right. And that's where we're at. Just as we've been talking, that's what this league is. It's every night. This game on Saturday with Garden City, they got really good guard play, and then they have a big lineup of forwards that are, just big bodies, athletes that, they make you really have to think about how you're going to guard some of their actions because their guards are really good and their forwards are big bodies. So, yeah, it should be a good challenge on Saturday again also.
Coach, as we move off of this Barton game, last really thing I want to touch on here is the team, definitely not a secret that I know you talked about turnovers being a big part of that, but you go from each team scoring upper 20s in the first half to each team eclipsing 40 in the second half, and your shooting percentage is well higher in the second half, 45% from the floor, 42% from 3. What was the change in the second half that really got your offense going, and how do you keep that momentum into Saturday?
Well, I think some of it is just getting through the nervousness of playing again and getting into a rhythm of game again, playing a game. Second half also, just how they were guarding us, we did some different stuff offensively to get some different movement. But then, yeah, we made a few shots in the second half, and that always helps. But, I think the first half for both teams, it was just a lot of working the rust off from the winter break that we have in junior college.
Red Ravens will take on the Garden City Broncbusters on Saturday afternoon, looking for their 8th win of the season. And, Coach, before we put a bow on your time here this week, we talked a little bit about it on Tuesday when we chatted, but you're a Chicago Bears fan.
Yeah.
And the Chicago Bears just clinched the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. So we're going to play GM here for a second. We want to know here on the Red Raven Coaches Show, if you could decide what the Bears do with that number 1 overall pick, what are you doing?
Well, I'm going to trust Ryan Poles, who's their general manager, because he is going to be very knowledgeable about which direction that they need to go. He's going to know way better than what I will. Just like, fans always questioning things about what head coaches do sometimes and may not know the inside knowledge that they need to understand the move. But if it was my call, based on what I've seen and stuff, I'd keep Justin Fields, trade the number 1 pick, get a truckload of players for that pick, and then build around him, and I think the Bears can be really good.
A Justin Fields believer, and I know
I am.
after the college football playoff games on New Year's Day, I know you're a big fan of that Washington wide receiver, Adunze.
Some of that might be because we've played so many freshmen this year, and having that experienced player, Justin Fields, would probably influences me over bringing in a rookie and trying to get him going in the NFL, which would be extremely hard.
No doubt about it. And I know, obviously, we've talked also about the Bears getting a second wide receiver to pair up with DJ Moore, and you got a nice little pick of the bunch this year. There's 4 or 5 pretty good ones. So,
and not to upset the Kansas City Chiefs fans around here, but they're seeing this year, if you got talent like Mahomes has had over the last few years, you're really good. And sometimes when you don't have that same kind of talent, the quarterback doesn't look as good. So, welcome to my world of Chicago Bears.
Oh, man. Well, we'll see what the Bears do with the number 1 overall pick here in a couple months, but we'll see what the Red Ravens do against Garden City on Saturday. Coach, always appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Let's step away for 3 minutes. When we come back, Coach Turner takes the seat. We'll talk Lady Raven basketball. We're back in 3 on the Red Raven Coaches Show here on the Mighty 690 KGGF. David W. Barnes Funeral Home and GG's Burger Bar. Appreciate them for having us, as always. Appreciate Coach Herkelman for getting the party started, and now we shift focus to the Lady Ravens and Coach Tony Turner. Coach, before we dive into the game, how was your holiday and how you doing?
Oh, our holidays went great, and just good time to hang out with family and just enjoy the time off and kind of recharge our batteries and think about what we need to do to get ready for this next part of the season.
And, Coach, no secret that obviously Barton, one of the toughest places to play in this league. Not really an easy place to play in this league, but Barton definitely one of the tougher ones, and they feature some of the most premier size in the conference. So before we kind of break it down from a more detailed perspective, what were some of your initial general takeaways from that game against Barton last night?
Oh, they were big, and their size bothered us a little bit. I thought we were faster than them, but they do have some pretty good speed. But no, I knew it'd be a tough game. It's always tough. Coach Clark does a great job, and I knew he'd have his team prepared. He had a month to prepare for us, and I thought he did a great job.
And like you said, not just two really good talented forwards that have great size, but also one of the best passers in the league as well, in Quizia Bertoni, who averaging 6 assists a game. She had 3 of them last night. She also had 20 points, but obviously a lot easier for the players down low when they have a talented point guard.
Oh, no question. I thought she was probably one of the best players on the court, if not the best player on the court. Just on the offensive end, the defensive end, she just played hard. Just played under control, and she just controlled the whole tempo of the game. And we got to do better.
Well, Coach, let's kind of get it started with talking about that. Where pretty apparent that the first and third quarters did not go the way the second and fourth quarters went. So I know that Barton did something that they really haven't done much this year, and they played kind of a half-court pressure style of defense, which is something that they really hadn't shown much in the first 12 games of the year. So you saw that defense, and how difficult is it as a head coach? I know you've had some years under your belt, but how difficult is it as a head coach when you kind of plan for a team to play a certain way, and then they show you something that maybe they haven't shown anybody before?
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, and I know Coach Clark. I said he's a great coach, and I knew he would have something different, something that we wasn't prepared for. He knew we would be prepared. We had a month to prepare for them, and he hit us with a curveball on his size and athleticism. But I thought our guards, other than a couple possessions, did a great job against it. And when he was in that little press, we scored on it several times. It's just when he got out of the press is when we had a hard time scoring, because they are long and athletic, and they did a good job. And number 20 did a great job of getting their hands on that next rotated pass. And but it's just part of it. But I thought we adjusted to what his original game plan was.
And Coach, we look at this, and obviously some of your top players didn't have the shooting night that you would want. Bailey, 3 of 11 from the floor. Kylie, 1 of 6. Tatana, 0 of 4. Ivy, 0 of 4. Karis Washington, 1 of 6. And that's not something that is usual for that group of players. So how much of that do you, I guess when you kind of balance the aftermath of the game, how much of that was Barton did a great job defending them, and how much of that was maybe it was just an off night for some of those girls, and you're confident that if those two teams matched up again, it would be a little bit different?
Oh, no question. Life on the road, and plus we hadn't played in a month, and we have to get our timing back, our chemistry back. We got to get our legs back up under us. We've been going 2 days, and just tired, and we hadn't had a break since we got back on the 27th. It's just hard, preparing for a conference game, but no. It's just part of basketball. I went over the Christmas break. I got to go watch Portland Trailblazers and the Golden State Warriors, and Steph Curry was over. He broke his streak of 3-point shots in the game, 3 points made in the game, and when even him, the best, has off nights, right. It's just part of basketball. It's just part of it.
Well, they may never let you in the Warriors into a Warriors game again if you were there when Steph didn't hit a 3.
He didn't hit a 3, and he missed some wide open shots. But back to us on that. But over the break, we watched film, and some of the shots, I asked the shooters, how often do you get? And I know they get in the gym, and I'm like, how many shots you putting up? And we don't know. They threw a number. I think one of them said, 50 after practice every day. I said, well, you may have to shoot 100, but we got to get those open shots, and we missed a lot of open shots.
And Coach, something that really stood out to me when I looked at this final box score here, and I wonder how much of this you think I don't want to spin this in the way that maybe Barton got lucky, because I don't think they did. Obviously, their talent is very, very impressive, but it's not the Barton team. I think is very clearly not quite as deep as your group is, because you look at this and your team had 21 bench points, and Barton didn't have any bench points. All of their 51 points scored by the starting five. So you see a team like that, whether it's you, whether it's Hutchinson, whether it's Butler, you see a team that really relies on their starting five so heavily. And I'm sure that changes a little bit how you game plan, maybe a little bit more aggressive, trying to get some of those starters in foul trouble and really put some pressure on that team to kind of dig for depth that maybe they're not sure they have.
Well, no question. One thing about Barton, what they did a great job of staying down, walling up on the post. And anytime we had a drive, they would just wall up, put their hands up. And, we used that film today as a teaching lesson for us. Just the important, and we've been talking about walling up. Just keep your hands up, don't swipe down on it, and just make it tough on them. And they did a great job of doing that. So it's hard to get them in foul trouble. They're so long. That's the longest team I've seen overall. I mean, they're shooting guards 6'3", but I don't know. It's just one of those deals, one of those games that I know their bench didn't score and our bench did well. But as we watched film today, I think we had 8 straight stops. We were up 18-15 and 8 straight stops, and we didn't capitalize on it. It's just our timing was off. We were off a little bit. Life on the road. It's just part of basketball, part of the game.
J-Maya Lyons continues to progress as the year goes on. She played 22 minutes for you, had 8 points, 5 rebounds, as well as 3 assists, 2 steals, only 2 turnovers. So she's clearly improving as she gets more minutes out on the court and as she moves further and further away from that injury. But you have to be liking the way she's playing so far here in the second half.
Oh, yes. J-Maya finished strong in this game. And, I've been on them about practice habits and practice hard. And, you play the way you practice. And I just thought early in the game, she struggled a little bit. Just because in practice she kind of struggles early until I start getting on them a little bit, and then they pick it up. And I just felt like early in the game we kind of had our practice habits of kind of going through the motions, not biting on them, not being physically aggressive. Well, I contributed. Well, we got ourselves down in the hole a little bit. Well, then we all stepped up, and it's like, no, we got to be from the get-go ready to come in and battle. And she's doing she's helping us a lot, and she's trying to get herself in shape. And once we get her in shape, and I'd really like our chance, because she's a very talented post player that is very skilled.
Well, in the combination of her and Jordan Snyder, which you've touched on multiple times this year, Jordan has 6 points, 2 rebounds and 2 blocked shots, which Jordan's one of the best shot blockers in this league, in my opinion. It feels like she's been just a premier shot blocker since she stepped foot at Coffeyville last year. And you talk about the best teams in this league, and Barton's got great size, and Hutchinson's got Monet Duffy and some big players in the post, and Butler's of course got Freddie Wallace, who a lot of people think of her as the best post in the league. And it seems like every good team in this conference has a good big, and maybe there's an exception or two, but you have to have a good big to win the Jayhawk Conference Championship. And Coach, you have 2 really good bigs in J. Maya and Jordan Snyder. You have to feel good about that room right now.
Oh, no question. And Jordan's coming along and coming to practice. We've had our little one-on-one talks about just confidence, and we have some rules with her that, for me, really my rules, like give her like 3 or 4 mess-ups, and then I'll kind of, hey, you all right, and move on to the next play. And she's kind of buying into that and getting herself ready. And I just think you're going to expect some big things from her. And if we can get her and J. Maya in there at the same time, that's a good force to have, because they're both long. They both know how to block shots. They both can get rebounds. And it's just we got to get that compatibility, get them able to feed off each other.
Well, and Coach, we talk about there's teams in this league that right now, sometimes even including the other team at Coffeyville Community College, that are playing rotations of 7-8 players. And sometimes, if a player gets into foul trouble, it really thins up and puts a lot of pressure on some of those other players. And you have a starting 5 that isn't your starting 5 right here with Olivia Daya, Ray Richardson, Natalia Jones, Karis Washington, Jordan Snyder. You even have Alexis Parker that you threw in for a couple of minutes as well. But, obviously you don't want a player like a Bailey or an Ivy or a Tatana to end up in foul trouble, but you have options, and that's that's something that not every team in this league has. And you look at it, and there's a very clear reason why this team's in the top 4, and it's because this team has the depth to hang with anybody.
Yeah, you're right. And sometimes I think we got too much depth, because I'm kind of one of them old school coaches. If you ain't getting down the court fast enough, come on, have a seat. You know what I mean? But it's it's a good problem to have, and it's just me as a coach and our coaching staff just got to figure out that right rotation. And we had some good heart-to-heart talks today during the film session, just about effort, working hard, loving your teammates, just battling for each other, and just battling for this college, and just being just great representatives of this college. But this team is fun. This team is. I hate to lose, but they understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, and I think in the years I've watched basketball, both here at Coffeyville and outside of Coffeyville, I think one of the most underrated aspects of a really good championship caliber team is that player you can bring in when things aren't really going well, things are off to a slow start, maybe the team's not hitting shots, you're down 6-7 early, and they come in and they change everything. The switch flips. And I think, you've got a couple players that really fit that bill. We know Karis can light it up with almost any freshman in this league. Natalia Jones, I remember she came into a game earlier this year, I think it was against Pratt, and had a quick 5 points in 2 or 3 minutes. Jordan Snyder's had games where she scores 8-10 points in a quarter. Olivia Daya can knock down threes at will. Ray Richardson hit a 3, and she's really doing a great job of running that offense when she comes into the game. So you have on a night where, if there is a night where maybe Kylie's 0 for 3, 0 for 4, Bailey's 0 for 3, 0 for 4, and you find yourself not off to the start you want to, you've got players that you can bring in and feel confident that they're going to get this ship, steered in the right direction.
Oh, no question, no question. And the players you did mention, they are hardworking kids and great kids, and we're just, again, it's a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I really, as they keep getting their confidence, we keep working on our chemistry and getting things right, and everybody understands their role. I think that this team is gonna make a hard run, a hard push to finish this season strong.
Yeah, and you talked about, obviously, I don't think you are a coach in the Jayhawk if you like losing, because you don't last very long.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that this team got off to the start that they did, 10-2, 5-1 at the break, because of this stretch you have coming up, where you play Barton on the road, and now Garden City comes to town, and Garden City's got one of the top scoring duos in the league. So you got there's no nights off, which we've talked about 100 times, but especially this stretch right here, where the next 2 weeks, Hutchinson just went to El Dorado and beat Butler by 20 points, and they come to Nellis Hall next weekend. So obviously you're looking to win 2 or 3 of these next games, but at the same time, because you got off to a 10-2 and 5-1 start, it doesn't feel like a loss ends your season. It just feels like a loss is an opportunity to learn from it, because you're still playing teams that you have a second date with down the road.
Oh, no question. And that's what I told them. I said, we ain't quitting on this. We lost a couple. We're still a game or two, I think 2 games out of first, a game out of second. We're right there in the hunt, and we can kind of control that. We hadn't played Hutch. We still play, but we play everybody one more time. We just got to handle our business, and as we grow as a team, as we just understand just the love part of the game, the love in your team, loving what you got going on. And when we get that, I swear we're going to be tough. We'll be tough to beat, as this team is going to be tough to beat.
And last thing here before we take our final break of the show, and this is something we've touched on as well when we saw that game against Butler, and we've seen we talked about it a little bit last year when you played Dodge and when you played Barton, that this team just I haven't seen, it's rare I should say, I haven't seen a moment where this group looks outmatched by anybody. I mean, you look at this, you struggled shooting the ball very much in 2 of those 4 quarters. You outscore Barton by 2, you get outscored by 6, you get outscored by 4, you get outscored by 3. You hung with them all 4 quarters, and that's one of the best teams in the league in their home gym on a night where you didn't shoot the ball well and you were right there. And I think that puts honestly more pressure on the other teams, because I think Barton went into that locker room excited that they beat Coffeyville at home, but I'm sure they went into that locker room thinking Coffeyville's not going to shoot 27% again when we go to Nellis Hall, and we only beat them by 10 points. And I think that that intimidates some teams, where Butler obviously came to Nellis Hall and got the win, but I'm sure Butler went in the locker room and said, there's some things that they're not going to be doing the same way when we play them again. And I think the fact that you've shown that even when things aren't necessarily going your way and you're not executing the game plan maybe at the level you want to, that it is just almost impossible for a team to just say, we outscored Coffeyville by 10 points in that quarter. We outscored Coffeyville by 12 points in that quarter. There's never really a stretch where your team just feels like they've been outclassed on the floor.
Oh, no question. Even after the game yesterday, as big as Barton, I was kind of concerned just with their with their posts are very athletic and can move, block shots, and they can shoot it. Not their posts, they're not great shooters, but their guards can shoot it, so you can't really sag in there too much. But I thought after that game, when I got done, when I went and watched film, I said, as big as they were, and some of our guards are smaller, I felt like we can compete and battle against anybody in the league. And I know Dodge is going to be big, but they're not going to be bigger than Barton. And we just got to I think we're going to match up fine with all of them, with everybody.
Completely agree, and the Lady Ravens will, of course, be back in Nellis Hall on Saturday afternoon when they take on Garden City. Let's take our final break of the show. We'll step away for 2 minutes. When we come back, we'll put a bow on this one and continue our conversation with Coach Turner. It's the Red Raven Coaches Show here on the Mighty 690 KGGF. We're back in 2 minutes. Of the Lady Ravens. And Coach, you know, something that I really kind of thought about on the drive up here today was really most of our conversations that we've had here on this show this year have been in a pretty good mood. I mean, your team's either usually playing pretty well or even on the even on the games you were that you've dropped this year, you were saying, you know, love how the team competed, love how the team never quit, and that NEO comeback on the road, and saying how you're going to obviously learn from that Butler game and be more prepared for the second matchup. So I was curious when we came in here tonight how your feelings would be after a game where I think it's safe to say it was your worst offensive game of the year. And, there were some goods to take away, but there were also probably more bads than maybe in any other game this year. So overall, with your team here 2 days, or I should say a day and a half away from playing Garden City, how do you feel about this group, and how much trust do you have in their ability to bounce back?
I try to be as positive as I can be, and I don't, like you said, I don't like to lose, but the things that happened in the game yesterday, I think they can be fixed, and it was really the first time this year that we sit down and watch the whole game and watch the effort, watch whatever, and we had everybody's eyes and everybody was paying attention and understanding just how important it is to play hard, how important it is to practice hard. And as long as if we can get to that understanding of it, I don't know, when you have success, people, this generation just don't understand, like, do you know how to handle it? And now they're kind of seeing, like, no, it's real and serious that Coach Turner and his staff are talking about. Come to practice working hard, come and pushing yourself, challenge each other, fight through the pain, and I just think that this team is gonna bounce back and
Yeah.
come back and be strong and finish strong.
Well, and I really think that's a great point that you just made, because I think that's, this is the time of the year where maybe some players that, even some of your sophomores that haven't been ranked to start a year before, haven't been picked as a top 3 team in the league before. All these players on your in your group have had experiences this year that they've probably never had before in their basketball career. And I think this is the part of the season where, we heard from your team, we heard from Tatana, Kylie, Bailey, some of your key players that, they were thinking about coming up just short last year and thinking about getting back to the region semis and finishing the job this year, and how they were going to, how they were hungry and they were motivated to finish the job. And I think last night in the game against Butler, maybe some of those wake-up calls where you realize, well, we're not the only team that's hungry and wants it. The Barton Cougars also want it and have enough talent to get it done. The Butler Grizzlies want it and have the talent to get it done. So I think this is the part of the season where you realize, we thought we were working hard, but maybe Barton wanted it a little more than us this week. And I think that, for a group of athletes as competitive and as talented as your group, I think that could really drive them to be like, we clearly got more work to do, and we clearly got to, up the ante a little bit and want it a little bit more than we do right now.
Oh, no, Barton definitely. When we went back and watched every ounce of every second of that game, it was totally understood that Barton wanted that game more than us. They went to the national tournament last year. They just got that little. They want to get back there. They understand what it takes to get back there. To the what I want to say about our kids we lost from last year, the Jordan, the Kennedy, Cheyenne, and Mackenzie. Those kids all understood. They were great leaders. They knew how to practice hard. They pushed those freshmen to help them get better. And this team is still kind of searching for that kid that wants to do all the dirty work. The Jordan Connors. You hear me say all the time, well, I need a Jordan. I need a Jordan. I need a Cheyenne. I need a Kennedy. Somebody that's going to be that glue to keep us together and battle. And so I thought yesterday, I know it's not our first loss, but it was more of a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call for us that, no, we're good now. Let's go. So,
and I think that speaks volumes to not just, your expectations of this team, but also, the community's expectations of this team, and the conference's expectations of this team. This was, the first game for every team in the league in a month, and, going on the road to play a Barton team is one of the toughest draws you can have for your first game in a month. And we're sitting here and, talking about how it was a disappointing result. And I think there's a lot of teams in this league that would say, of course, we wanted to win that game, but going on the road to Barton is a tough game, and we'll learn from it. And we're sitting here saying, no, you gotta want it more. You gotta, do the dirty work. We're at the point of the year now where there's less days to fix things than there were maybe in November. And I think we're sitting here now, and it's if you don't go into a game with a Butler or a Barton and things are fixed, you're going to find yourselves on the wrong end of the game.
No question. I tell them it's going to be a long season. Just if you don't have that sense of urgency, that sense of, again, the message of our film session today was, you got to love each other, man. We got to love playing for each other. You got to love and know that my teammate has my back. My coaches have my back. You got to trust our coaching staff, trust what's going on, and we still got a couple players that if they don't go in the game when they think they should, they kind of get that little attitude and make it about them. And I said, no, we got to shake all that and make it about us and trust the coaches. There's a reason why we're subbing at this time and not that time, and a reason why we're subbing this player and not you, or whatever. And it's not a personal thing. It's just about the chemistry, the game plan, or what we think. And I know my coaches, we film every one of our practices, and I go back and watch practice, and every day I watch it. People, believe it or not, I get my recliner, I turn that laptop on, put my little earpiece in, and I watch practice just to see if there's something I missed. What can I do to help us get better? And so once this team starts trusting, and that's saying that they're not, I don't want to paint a bad picture, but once we get all in, and that's all 14 of them, all in, it'll be tough.
Well, it's so hard to, it's so hard for me to sit here and say, I guess I should say it's easier said than done. But with these 18, 19-year-old kids to block out the noise. But I think, watching a lot of, these sports documentaries and these championship teams talking about, what separated them and what kind of clicked for them is they always talk about, we just hit a point of the season where nobody outside of this locker room mattered. and
Right.
we if whether it was fans, whether it was the media, whether it was other teams, we didn't listen to it. It's just about the people in this locker room. It's just about these coaches, these players. We like the Washington Huskies are playing for a national championship on Monday, and their quarterback Michael Penix said that back in July and August when they were in fall camp, he said, we're going to go out there and we're going to win the national championship. And I think if you heard him say that in August, nobody in America would have believed him. And now they're playing for a national championship on Monday. So it really goes to show you that, like you said, if everyone buys in, if everyone kind of tunes out that outside noise, it's all about the people in this locker room. It's all about the people, these 14 people on this team. I think, obviously, we've talked about it. This team has the talent to not in this league, but beat a whole lot of teams across the country.
Oh, no question. And I even emphasize, like, we have a number behind us. We're ranked. We've been up and down the rankings, and it's Coffeyville. People want to beat Coffeyville. Coffeyville has this era. People want to beat Coffeyville. I mean, so we're going to get everybody's best shot every single night. And I just want our team to understand we got to have that mindset to go out and battle, outwork everybody, and just be that team that, like, man, that's Coffeyville. They play hard. They play together.
And it just feels like I'm talking football because it's the national championship in college football and it's about to be the playoffs in the NFL, but it just feels like across a lot of sports that at the end of the day, the willing to get dirty and gritty team always seems to beat the team with the talent, doesn't it?
The hard-working teams.
I was going to say, it always seems like the team that's willing to dive for the loose ball, jump on the fumble, what may have you, go for the diving catch in the outfield. I mean, the teams that are willing to put that extra little 5% in, that's what wins it. And I think that this team definitely, obviously, capable of that. But this is the part of the season where this team has plenty of talent, but every team in this league has plenty of talent. Now it's about who's willing to want it the most.
Who wants it the most? And that's going to be that question of that film session when we walked out. Who wants it the most? And, I keep, Coach Cam played for me, and Coach Sierra's been around me for 5 years, and I keep saying, I don't want to go back to who I used to be, that monster. And, everybody see me, they got to walk around on eggshells, and I want us to be tough. I want us to make it more self mindset, and then instead of me just kind of coming in being that bear, and I don't like being that bear. I'm getting a little older, and I want to kind of enjoy it, but those teams that I used to have are really tough, and I just go back a lot, maybe because every team represents their head coach, and maybe because I think I'm getting a little bit too soft. I got to get a little tougher to get us a little tougher to go ahead and win this thing.
Well, Coach, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about Garden before the game on Saturday, but shifting ahead here as we put a bow on this show to the Broncbusters, two of the better scorers in this league. Plenty of them that's in the top half of this conference that obviously you're going to be paying attention to here, and then these teams kind of find out where they're going to sit at the end of this. What do you see from them initially, and obviously being back at Nellis Hall, huge to get back on track, and how do you do that?
They have a great coach that's got a lot of success, and, I'll be honest, I haven't watched them much. It is no disrespect to them. I watched our Barton game, watched our Stewart game, just trying to see what they see, what I can see, what can I do to help us be better. Tonight when I get home, I'll definitely watch Garden City and probably watch 3 or 4 games tonight and try to get prepared for them. And but no, they do have some very talented players. They do run some good stuff. Just from the probably hour I have watched them, but no, we'll have to play tomorrow. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a dogfight Saturday.
You may not believe it if you've listened to the last half hour of this show, but the Lady Ravens are still 10-3 and in the top 4 of this conference. So obviously some stuff to learn from last night's game, but this team's still a really good basketball team in a really good position to chase a championship, and we'll see if they can bounce back against Garden City on Saturday. But, Coach, as always, appreciate the time, and we can't wait for the game against Garden on Saturday.
Well, thank you, Shay, and I can promise you we will bounce back. I promise you on that. We're going to battle.
There we go.
Okay,
we love the promise.
Yeah.
We love the promise. Well, big thank you to the David W. Barnes Funeral Home for sponsoring the show. Big thanks to Gigi's Burger Bar for having us each week as well. Until, of course, Saturday's doubleheader against Garden City, and until next Thursday where we're back here in these chairs at Gigi's, this is Shay Neal saying so long here on the Red Raven Coaches Show on the Mighty 690 KGGF. Perfect.